This video is the second version of writing equations of lines given various information. In the other version, I use slope-intercept form, which is y equals mx plus b. In this video, I am going to use point-slope form, but all of my answers will be written in slope-intercept form. A reminder for point-slope form is that point-slope form is the formula y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. If you prefer this version, I highly recommend watching my other video that introduces point-slope form first. That way you understand what's really going on. You're going to use point-slope form anytime you have the slope and the point, just like the name says. So when you look at number 1 and number 2, you're not necessarily going to use point-slope form because I already know the slope, I already know the y-intercept, so I can write number 1 as y equals 3x minus 2, and I'm finished. For number 2, same thing. I've been given the slope, I've been given the y-intercept, so I can go ahead and just write this as y equals negative 1/4 x plus 7. Now let's look at number 3. On number 3, you have the slope of 5, and you have a point negative 1, 7. So m is 5, I'm skipping ahead to number 4. Number 3, m is negative 4, x is 2, and y is 6. If I'm plugging this into point-slope form, then you're going to plug in your point to the x and y with the 1's. So it'll look like this. My y1 is 6, my slope is negative 4, and my x1 is 2. Once you have plugged those three things in, all you have to do is get y by itself to make it be in slope-intercept form. To do this, first you're going to distribute the negative 4, and we get negative 4x plus 8. And then the only thing that's left from here is to add 6. So y is negative 4x plus 14. That's my final answer. Go ahead and pause the video, try number 4, and then we'll check it together. On number 4, your m is 5, your x1 is negative 1, and your y1 is 7. So, plugging this in to my formula, I have y minus 7 equals 5 times x minus negative 1. Here's where you have to be really careful with your signs. When you're plugging in a negative number, since the formula is subtraction, that is going to actually turn into addition. X minus negative 1 is the same thing as x plus 1. So anytime you're plugging in a negative number for your point, it's going to turn into addition. From here, I'm going to distribute to get 5x plus 5. Then I'm going to add the 7. And y is 5x plus 12. Moving on to number 5. Number 5 is a little bit different because instead of giving the slope in a point, you're just given 2 points. So what you have to do here is you have to think about how we can find the slope based on what we already know. So if you think back to Unit 3, anytime you're given 2 points, we have a formula that we can use to find the slope. That formula is m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. If I plug in these 2 points into that formula, then I have negative 6 minus negative 3 over 3 minus 4. Well, negative 6 minus negative 3 is negative 6 plus 3. So I end up with negative 3 over negative 1, which is positive 3. To plug this into point slope, you can choose either point. It doesn't matter which one. They will both give you the same answer. For this one, I'm just going to choose the first point. So, y minus negative 3, remember becomes y plus 3, equals 3 times x minus 4. From here, I distribute the 3, and y plus 3 is 3x minus 12. My last step is to subtract the 3, and my final answer is y equals 3x minus 15. Be careful with your signs. Go ahead and try number 6. Pause the video and restart it when you're ready to check. On number 6, plugging this into my slope formula, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, I have 2 minus negative 1 over 4 minus 3. 2 minus negative 1 is 3, and 4 minus 3 is 1. Now that I have my slope, I can choose either point to plug in to point slope. On this one, I'm actually going to choose my second point. That way I don't have to deal with any negatives. Since 4 and 2 are both positive, I'm going to plug that one in. But again, you can choose either point. When I plug this in, I have y minus 2 equals 3 times x minus 4. 3 times x is 3x. 3 times negative 4 is negative 12. And my final step is to add the 2, making this y equals 3x minus 10. Looking at number 7, I am given the slope and I'm not given the b. A lot of people think that negative 3 is the b on this one. However, x-intercept is not b. Y-intercept is b. So instead, I have to think back to what I learned about x and y-intercepts in Unit 3. When you have an x-intercept of negative 3, that means you have the point negative 3, 0. Remember, anytime you have an x-intercept, that means y is 0. Now I can plug this in to point slope using 0 for y1, negative 1/2 for my m, and negative 3 for x1, which makes that plus 3. From here, negative 1/2 times x is negative 1/2 x. Don't let the 1/2 mess you up. Negative 1/2 times 3. 3 is the same thing as 3 over 1. You're just going to multiply straight across, and we get negative 3 over 2. From here, y minus 0, that minus 0 really just goes away. If I add 0 over, it's not going to change anything. So my final answer is y equals negative 1/2 x minus 3/2. Go ahead and pause the video, try number 8, and then restart when you're ready to check. All right, number 8 is kind of similar to number 7, but this time you are given the x-intercept and the y-intercept. So we already know that b is going to end up being 2 on this one, but since I'm using point slope, I'm going to actually write both of these as coordinates first, because I need to figure out my slope. An x-intercept of 6 means that I have the point 6, 0. Remember, x-intercept of 6 means your y is 0. A y-intercept of 2 means that I have the point 0, 2, because that it is the opposite. When you have a y-intercept, your x will be 0. Now that I know this, I can use my slope formula. I have x1, y1, x2, and y2. So plugging this in, 2 minus 0 over 0 minus 6 would be 2 over negative 6, which reduces to negative 1/3. Now, technically, you can go ahead and write your answer at this point because I already know that b is 2. However, if you wanted to use your point slope, you can use either point. I'm just going to use the x-intercept. So plugging this in, y minus 0 equals negative 1/3 times x minus 6. Well, negative 1/3 times x is negative 1/3 x. Negative 1/3 times negative 6. Negative 6 is the same thing as negative 6 over 1. Negative 1 times negative 6 is positive 6. 3 times 1 is 3, making this reduce to positive 2. And again, I can add 0 over, but it's not going to change anything at all. So this version was point slope form. You could also check out my other video that uses slope intercept the whole time, and you could just use y equals mx plus b. Either option will work.